Major League Baseball has seen legendary aces, from Cy Young to Walter Johnson to Bob Gibson, Sandy Koufax to Nolan Ryan to Roger Clemens, Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, and even the three-headed monster from Atlanta of Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz, to more modern aces like Justin Verlander, Clayton Kershaw, and Max Scherzer, to the next generation of top hurlers in Paul Skeens and Tarek Skubal. The ace in baseball has generated the highest praise and most spotlight. However, there is one ace in today's game that is often overlooked, an ace that is somehow overshadowed and almost forgotten by many when the conversation of the best starter in the game today is asked. Who is this pitcher? Who is it, you may ask? Who is the most underrated ace in baseball? His name is Zack Wheeler.
Swing and a miss. There's the first strikeout of the day and for the season for Zack Wheeler. Swing and a miss and a strikeout for Zack Wheeler. Swing and a miss. He got him. 4 strikeouts for Wheeler. Swing and a miss. He got him. He did go away. 5 strikeouts for Wheeler.
To understand why I believe that Zack Wheeler is the most underrated ace in baseball today, we have to understand what an ace is. By definition, it is a very skilled person, an expert, someone who is adept at that particular thing. And what we've seen from Zack Wheeler is an absolute expert, skilled person in dealing with getting batters out. He's been adapted to do everything that you look for from a baseball ace. So what does that mean in the context of baseball? To be an expert, to be adept, to be an ace. This is the player that you look towards, the pitcher that you look towards game one of the most important games of your season. The clinching game of a World Series, the first game of a World Series. You look to this player to stop a losing streak. You look to this player to be the guy who leads your pitching staff in innings pitched, in ERA, in strikeouts, and just having that presence and that command that when he steps on the mound, you feel like today is win day. And when you look at the new school stats and not just thinking about the old school feel of a baseball ace, and you look towards the numbers, things like xERA, FIP, strikeout to walk ratio. This is a pitcher and a player that you want on your squad. This is the kind of guy that you look to build your pitching staff around.
Swing and a miss. One away here in the first strikes. Swing and a miss. He got him. Second strike. Swing and a miss. 94 up in the zone. Swing and a miss. How about 4 strikeouts in the first 2 innings? Oh, he went. Yeah, he did. Home plate umpire doesn't need help. He needed to think about it a little bit. He not having that big jar one. I don't know who did that. There's a strike 3 call. Zach. If I have a child together, then yes, we can name him Malachi. Yeah, he went around. 7 strikeouts. And the 2-2 pitch. Breaking ball. Strike 3 calls. 8 strikeouts for. And a strike 3 called right down the chute. Next inning. Swing and a miss. He got him.
And when we get into the second part of this and why Wheeler is so often overlooked, there's a few easy answers for me. There's a quiet consistency about what Zack Wheeler does. He goes in, gets his work in, works it every 5 days. You can count on him to be there for the Philadelphia Phillies. And that's what we've seen from him as the ace of the Philadelphia Phillies. This is a guy who goes out there and does his job. The other part of it for me is that he's often overshadowed by his own teammates. And while they may not be the guys in the starting rotation, they're the guys in the starting lineup. The everyday players, your Bryce Harpers, your Trey Turners, your Kyle Schwarbers. Having these household names, these amplified players that come with that absolutely highlight package reel on a nightly basis when you look at MLB Tonight, that can kind of overshadow a player and a pitcher like Zack Wheeler, who's going to go out there, again, quietly doing exactly what you expect from him. You also look at the way that the game is now revolving around these high prospects, guys like Paul Skeens, like Tarek Skubal, that are going to dominate the headlines. And at times, that will overshadow a guy who gives you a level of consistency that you've just come to expect. It's almost taken for granted how good Zack Wheeler has been for the Philadelphia Phillies. And to me, those are the reasons why he is so often overlooked. Yes, MLB's Top 10 Right Now series did name Zack Wheeler as the #1 pitcher in the game, but no one else really saw him in that context, myself included. There's no doubt about it that this is a pitcher that you rely on as a Phillies fan, and you know he's going to go out there and give you absolutely everything he has to win today. And that's what you look for from a baseball ace.
Down on strikes, one away. There's inch off, 2 balls, 2 strikes. And a strike 3 call right on the outside corner, 96. And a strike 3 call on the outside corner. That's ridiculous. Swing and miss. 4 strikeouts for Wheeler. I wouldn't expect an error if that was me. Strike 3 call. He's only got 1. Now strike 3 call on the outside corner, 6. Breaking ball, strike 3 call on the inside corner. I think Larry Christensen pitched that. He did.
Those were ugly. I'm sorry. They were ugly.
8 strike Cruz. He probably did too. Taylor Cruz, I know, did that. Swing and a miss, 9 strikeouts.
Slider combo, but he's starting to figure it out, isn't he?
Swing and a miss. Just struck out the side.
Now, as we get into the third part of this discussion, there's a few things that we have to identify. Zack Wheeler is often overlooked, as have been many aces in their day. Sometimes overshadowed by their own teammates, other times overshadowed by other pitchers in the league. I think back to another former Philadelphia Philly in Cliff Lee.
Got him.
Leadoff hitters have.
On the inside corner, another strikeout for
Cliff
Lee.
Lee was overshadowed by Roy Halladay on his own team when they were both pitching for the Philadelphia Phillies, and by CC Sabathia when they were both pitching on the Cleveland Indians at the time. When you look at pitchers like Tim Hudson, who was overshadowed by some of the other players on his own team,
Won 7 of his first 8 major league decisions. Only loss coming to Texas back on the 24th. He's down on strikes here. O'Leary is for a strikeout for Hudson.
Here's the pitch. Swing and a miss. He got him on a slider.
in Mulder and Zito, but also by the pitchers of the time in Roger Clemens, Pedro Martinez, and Randy Johnson. This was an unsung ace that did not get his just due, much like Zack Wheeler. You also look at a guy like Kevin Brown, who was one of the most dominant pitchers in the game at one point, but was often overshadowed by the likes of Roger Clemens and Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and the others of that same ilk and era. And there's no doubt about it that Zack Wheeler is seeming to fall in that same line and that same lineage of overlooked aces because of bigger names on the market. We spoke at the top of this about Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, and they have all seemed to overshadow what Zack Wheeler has been doing quietly now for the past 5 seasons for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the other part of this is that you can look to Zack Wheeler as a potential Hall of Fame pitcher down the line. Yes, when you look at the peak and you think about other peak performers that did not fare so well, guys like a Johan Santana, for example, there's no doubt about it that the peak that these guys had is Hall of Fame worthy. And whether or not we're going to see the BBWAA give Zack Wheeler his just due at the time when he comes up on the ballot, we'll have to wait and see how it is. But for me, looking at the numbers, looking at the way that he's been able to dominate the game, and quietly so, being able to be a guy who has been one of the most reliable arms for the Philadelphia Phillies, it is almost underrated and almost a travesty the fact that this has not been a player that has been given more consideration for the Cy Young. And I hope and pray that by the time we get to Zack Wheeler's Hall of Fame candidacy, that we can see things more and much more clearly and in a better light. Because to me, the way that Zack Wheeler has been pitching for the Phillies, there's no doubt he is on a Hall of Fame path. The other part of this is, for Zack Wheeler in context of where he stands in history, is that he is climbing up the ranks of the legendary pitchers that have come through the Philadelphia Phillies organization. And there's no doubt about it that when you start to compare him and you start to see where he falls in line in that comparison with one of the most legendary organizations in the sport, there is no doubt about it that Zack Wheeler deserves to be mentioned amongst the upper echelon of the game today when it comes to the starting pitching ranks. So now the question has to be asked, Where do you see Zack Wheeler in terms of baseball's context of the ace? Is he a top 10 ace for you, or is he not? Let me know those thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, make sure you keep it locked in here to the Baseball Banter Broadcast, as hitting that subscribe button and the bell for post notifications is the best way to know every time we drop new content. Make sure you check out our link tree in the description, as it does have all the pertinence to our merch store, our social links, our partnerships, including our new Topps partnership, and much, much more. So definitely keep it locked in there. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below as to this video and the underrated ace that is Zack Wheeler. And if there's any other content you'd love to see from us here at the Baseball Banter Broadcast, make sure you comment that below as well. We'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.
Set up on 0-2. Payoff pitch is a fastball. That's the fourth Wheeler strikeout. Alonso takes ball, strike break. Stays. Taylor off balance, swing on a splitter. There, 2 down. 0-2. Wheeler staying away from that happy zone. Got him with the sweeper. 0-2. Vientos swings and misses. Strikeout number 8 in the Met. 2-2.